And speaking of the Tigers, a guy that covers them like nobody else. I mean, this guy's all over it. David Hood from TigerNet joins us. David, good seeing you again. I do want to talk Clemson football, but given the timing of our booking and everything else, let's talk about the big picture. And that is, of course, Clemson was involved with the lawsuit, so was Florida State.
Right.
Everybody agreed to it. At the end of the day, from a Clemson perspective, was this a win?
It absolutely was a win. And one of the things that I tried to caution Clemson fans about, you can't look through it through the lens of the ACC. You can't look through it through the same lens as Florida State, who kind of had a more they were a little bit louder in what they wanted out of the lawsuit than Clemson was. Clemson very understated. Clemson had, really the two objectives. Can we get a little bit more money out of this? And then can we figure out what we can do vis-a-vis the grant of rights and our media rights deals? Where do we stand? And, how can we move forward if something were to happen? And so Clemson wins on both accounts, provided that you still have to go win. You still have to win games and be successful with the brand success initiative. But Clemson absolutely with a win. And, they could leave tomorrow if they wanted to. They'd have to pay that $165 exit fee, but they'd take their media rights deal with them. So that's a win.
And I mentioned this when we led off the show today. In summer, and this doesn't always happen when you get a deal like this, where somebody feels slighted. But I think the league got a W. I think Florida State got what they wanted to some degree out of this, and Clemson too. And to me, that's a good deal. That when everybody can walk away and say, hey, you know what, we're still working as a partnership. Down the road we go. It's important for Florida State to be good. It's important for Clemson to be good. It's important for North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Miami, Georgia Tech, and everybody else fill in the blank. You got to win.
Right.
And in this day and age, if you don't make a commitment to doing it, quite frankly, you shouldn't be rewarded. And I think it's one of the things that both Clemson and Florida State, and if you've got any competition and any want to in your body, that should be the gig. That, hey, we need to go out and perform. And again, I know you got to get money to get players, to get coaches, to get facilities. I understand how it all works. But in Clemson's case, it feels like that's exactly what they wanted. And you know what? If they're successful, they should be rewarded financially and with the hardware and all the other stuff that comes along with it.
And now if you're Boston College or Wake Forest or, maybe some of those teams that have or schools that haven't invested as heavily as a Clemson, as a North Carolina, as a Duke, and some of the facilities and things, now you have incentive to do so. Because if you want to be, to earn a little bit larger piece of the pie, well, guess what? You've got to be pretty good, and you've got to go out and you've got to win games. And, I can remember walking into the Conti Forum a couple of years ago up at Boston College and talking to one of their coaches, and he was telling me, this isn't the same. Here, they don't invest like Clemson does, like some of these other schools. And when you're trying to recruit, you're against the eight ball. You've just got to find a kid that loves this place. Well, now these other schools, they have some incentive.
It's also, it's going to be, and I mentioned this earlier today too, it's going to be a bit strange because it seemed like there was a dark cloud hanging over the ACC for the last couple of years, right? I mean, I can't tell, if I had a dollar for every person who said, hey, Pac, you think Florida State's going to the SEC? You think Clemson's going to the Big Ten? I'm like, hey, I don't know how this is going to work out. Smart people will eventually get together and figure this thing out one way or the other. But for the first time in a long time, you're going to kind of seemingly have some calm waters for everybody to swim in. Now, again, there's still going to be the struggle to have success and win games and get to the college football playoff and get to the NCAA basketball tournament, winning all. But that hasn't changed. But it does seem like it's a different day for the ACC and should stay that way, knock on wood, for at least another 5 or 6 years.
It gives the league stability. It gives the schools some stability. And I was laughing earlier that, now we don't have to really endure those kind of awkward exchanges between Graham Neff, Clemson's athletic director, and Commissioner Jim Phillips. I can remember them at the ACC tournament last year when Clemson played out in Los Angeles against Baylor. They're in the Final Eight, seeing that awkward exchange sometimes out on the field before football games. Maybe now everybody can be friendly again and smile and pat each other on the back and just kind of realize maybe this is all behind us.
All right, let's talk football because spring practice has started. And I could go hoops too because Brad Brownell's got the Tigers playing at a crazy level and they're playing great basketball. In baseball, fresh off a sweep in South. I mean, well, I could go a lot of different ways. I mean, times are good right now in Tiger Town, but spring football practice is underway. I know you've had a
That's the
chance
deal.
at least. I know how it works, brother. Yeah, I know you've
That's
had a
the
chance
deal.
to sample a little bit of it. But Coach Allen, the defensive side, really is going to be the intriguing $1 million question with this team, isn't it? And with that said, what have you seen, or maybe more importantly, what have you heard at practice?
Well, one of the linebacker Wade Woodaz walked in the other night for interviews after the first practice with a big smile on his face. And it was the kind of smile I really haven't seen out of him in a long time. And I said, what are you so happy about? And he said it was intense, it was chippy. I love it. And I asked him, what was your first impression of Tom Allen? And he said he walked into the room without saying anything to anybody and said, "We're going to stop the run. That's what we're going to do. We're going to stop the run and we're going to tackle." Well, if you followed Clemson football last year, they didn't do either one of those things very well. They didn't stop the run. They didn't tackle well. And then you see Tom Allen out there, and of course Dabo's kind of famous at practices for having the mic. He's on the speaker so that everybody all over the field can hear him. But in that early part of practice, it was Tom Allen that had the mic, and it was all technique type stuff. Hey, lasso the legs and you stop the motor. That's how you make a tackle. And it was technique stuff. And then Corey and Gibson, one of the defensive backs, made a really nice play. And next thing you know, Tom Allen's taking him to the ground, runs out there and tackles him. And I wrote about that. And I said, does that win football games? Of course it doesn't. But that type of intensity has been missing since one certain person left to go to Oklahoma. He had that persona of Jimmy Greenbeans where he was scout team quarterback. He was always bleeding from the mouth or somewhere because he was out there getting hit. Now you kind of see that again with Tom Allen, and the players have already bought in, and that's huge.
I was going to ask you too about the running back situation because when you got all this experience coming back with this team against number one in the country in terms of experienced players. We've seen now back-to-back years Clemson's freshmen led the country in snaps. So this has kind of been building. Now all of a sudden Dabo comes to a spring practice and you got dudes who've been around the block a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to watch them this spring. And of course, there's going to be a ton of hype, obviously, with the LSU opener. But the running back room will be another one of those things to pay attention to. And with that said, I know we've only had a couple practices down there, but has anybody stood out yet where you said, wait a minute, who is that guy? Because Adam Randall last year, the wide receiver, again, you got kind of a sample of that in the Texas game in the college football playoff. I know that was one of the things Dabo talked about. Hey, we're going to experiment a little bit. So what does the running back situation look like?
I really like the way Adam Randall looks at running back. He's leading everybody in drills. He's sprinting in between drills. He's leading both the quarterbacks and the running backs. He's a little bit bigger guy, because when you get to be a certain height and you're in high school, well, they move you to wide receiver, not running back. There's a reason for that. But I think Clemson sees him kind of, maybe taking that Cordarrelle Patterson route where they turn him from when he went to the Chicago Bears, they turned him from a wide receiver into a running back. Maybe not in every kind of down back, but can do things. You can move him across the field. You can put him in the slot, throw him, fades and wheel routes. But I'll tell you, that kid from Virginia, the freshman Gideon Davidson, Dabo told us that he jumped 40 inches, had a vertical leap of 40 inches when they were testing him. And you get out there and he's wearing that kind of familiar number 9. Yes, Wayne Gallman, but yes, Travis Etienne. And you watch him in the drills and you go, there's nobody else in that running back room that looks like that. And that's just the truth. And I posted a picture of him on Twitter last night. You see him, man, the kid's jacked and there's just a different gear there. And the other night, the coaches in the first practice were saying 30%, 30%, don't get hurt, slow it down. And this kid, even at 30%, just smooth. And it's the way that Travis Etienne looked. And I sit here and was telling somebody today, I know that at running back, it took Travis Etienne a while to break into the starting lineup. I'm not going to be shocked if Davidson breaks into the starting lineup sooner rather than later.
Clemson has done a great job scheduling, right? And that's the one thing. I mean, they've won a lot of games, obviously, but they've also not shied away from saying, hey, our non-conference schedule is going to have some meat on the bone. And we've seen the Clemson Georgia games, and I can go to the whole list. But I'm going to tell you something. That LSU opener, Man, that game's got some juice to it, boys. And let me tell you, LSU's going to be good. This is an important year for Brian Kelly. We've seen a lot of big games early, but this one, given Tom Allen, what's Clemson's D going to look like? We talked about the running back situation, all this experience coming back, the whole LSU Clemson Death Valley thing, which I know people will beat that to death like nobody's business. Again, next year Clemson will go down to Baton Rouge, but man, that is a great college football opener, isn't it?
Two of the best quarterbacks in the country.
That's right.
Nussmeier has proven he can throw that football all over the yard. He's great. I think they kind of came on and found some identity at the end of last year. They're going to have a lot of really good players, and you're right, make or break for Brian Kelly in some ways. He's got to prove he can do it. And my only hope, I was joking with somebody the other day. I hope it's not a noon kickoff there late August in Death Valley because it'll be 142 degrees. So maybe that'll be fine too. But you have to also take a look. What's Clemson's record been against the SEC? The past few times they played them. Georgia beat them last year. South Carolina beat them last year. So Clemson, there's that ACC SEC juice that you have to talk about too. I just can't imagine that there's going to be another opener that would be, or have that much on the line. Clemson follows it up with a game against Troy, putting the schedule up there. And then they've got Georgia Tech. So meat on the bone to begin with for the Tigers next year. And by that week 4, when they play Syracuse and Fran Brown, we're going to know a lot about what this team looks like.
Yeah, no question. Before I let you go, I know we could talk football for hours, but man, the job Brad Brunell has done. I mean, last year was kind of what an awesome ride. But you know what? This team's even better, and they're experienced and they're tough. Ask Duke. And man, you got 2 or 3 losses in overtime, which woulda, coulda, shoulda. What this year could be just unbelievably good. But I know that the ACC tournament's next week, and I don't want to talk about the O for Life thing because I used to blame my dear old dad, Billy Packer, when Wake Forest, when he played for him back in '62, beat Clemson in the finals. I said, I know the refs screwed my guys. I know they did because we could be eliminating this O for 71 streak. But man, the Clemson basketball, this has really been a fun team to watch, and they've been legitimately good. They're tough, they're well coached, and to be able to do it on the road. Again, I know they go to BC tomorrow, but David, that to me is the separator. Everybody's good at home, but when you can take it on the road and beat people, and they've been wearing people out, this is a really well coached, really talented basketball team.
And they do it yeah, and they do it in different ways. They've been a really good three-point shooting team all year. And then the other night with Chase Hunter battling a little bit of a calf injury, they go up to Virginia. They make 1 3-pointer, but they score 48 in the paint. Victor Locken, the center, has really come on. Dabo Sweeney calls him the Locken Ness Monster. That's a great name for him. And so they can win. They can shoot the three. They can go inside. And when you get to tournament time, what do you say? You like teams that are older. They check that box, and you like teams that are good with their guard play. Clemson's very good with their guard play. Dylan Hunter's joined the starting lineup, joining his brother, Jaden Zachary, the transfer from Boston College, has really played a pivotal role. He's come on of late. It's a dangerous basketball team. They really kind of check all the boxes for you.
Yeah, by the way, are you the one that takes credit for the design of the opposing pitchers there at the baseball stadium at Kingsmore now? Because I mean, I saw everybody complaining from South Carolina the other night about, man, this is ridiculous. Or a guy goes down there to warm up. We got people breathing on the back of his neck. I said, David Hood must have designed that one, right? Are you going to take credit for that one?
I will say that crossed my mind, and I told somebody at Clemson that the bullpen was wasted space, and when I told them about it, it was my answer was, yeah, we're going to change that. Eric Bakich has plans. We're going to throw that on Eric Bakich.
Well, sweeping South Carolina never goes out of style. I know that to be true. Listen, keep up the great work. I appreciate that, your insight. And again, it's been a good time to be a Tiger because everything, basketball, baseball, football, everything's rocking and rolling. Sounds good.
Even lacrosse.
Right.
Lacrosse.
Exactly
Big
right.
wins over Notre Dame and Syracuse on the road.
That's exactly right. All right, man. Keep up the good work. Congrats to your better half as well, by the way.
I appreciate it, and I always enjoy coming on the show. Thank you for having me on.
You got it, David. Take care of yourself. Off it goes.